A lot of people start investing because they're trying to do the responsible thing. They hear that wealthy people invest, time in the market matters, and that starting early can change your life. And all of that is true. But the problem is the order. Investing works best when your financial life is stable enough to leave the money alone. Otherwise, every surprise bill becomes a reason to stop contributing. Or worse, a reason to sell a stock that you thought you would hold for years. By the end, you'll know exactly where investing fits, what needs attention first, and how to build a foundation that actually supports wealth instead of collapsing every time life gets expensive. Why does order even matter though? As long as it all gets done, who cares? Incorrect. The reason this topic matters is because investing is exciting where the basics usually aren't. Building an emergency fund feels painfully slow, and paying off debt just feels like you're sending money into a black hole created by your past self. Investing feels different. It's forward-looking, and a sense that your money is finally doing something useful. That emotional pull can make the foundation seem optional, but it's important to know that money has an order of operations. In math, you can use the right numbers and still get the wrong answer if you do things out of order. Personal finance works the same way. You can make smart moves that create stress because they were done too early. Think of your financial life like a building. Investing is the upper floor. That's where the view is. That's where long-term wealth is built, and that's the part everyone talks about. The foundation underneath it is quieter. Cash flow, bills, emergency savings, debt. These things sound basic, but they decide whether your investments can actually stay invested. And today's 5 steps make up that foundation. Once these are in place, investing becomes calmer and easier to repeat. The first thing I'd handle before seriously investing is cash flow. Cash flow is simply what comes in, what goes out, and what's left after life is paid for. It sounds incredibly simple, and that's why a lot of people skip it. But if you don't know your real leftover number, investing just becomes a guessing game. You might invest $200 because it feels responsible, but then remember that your insurance payment is still due. Groceries cost a little more expensive, or your gas tank is empty. Suddenly, that $200 has to be replaced from somewhere, and oftentimes it ends up on a credit card. Other times, you may have to immediately sell that investment you just made. And even if it's the same price as when you bought it, you're still gonna get eaten alive by trading fees. That's how someone can technically be investing but still feel like they're falling behind. The goal here is to figure out how much you can actually invest without needing to borrow it back. Start with your take-home pay. Then, subtract the real cost of your life: housing, transportation, food, insurance, utilities, debt payments, and anything else that you have to spend on a month-to-month basis. The number left over is your decision-making number. If you have a healthy gap, you have room to assign money to savings, debt, and investing. But if the gap is tiny or negative, the foundation needs work before investing can become significant. This is also how you find money leaks. A leak might not feel dramatic in the moment, but it can erase your progress at the end of the month. It could be delivery fees, subscriptions, impulse buys, or just a lifestyle that grew faster than your income. But that doesn't mean to shame every small purchase. The point is to see if those small purchases are impacting the bigger goals that you care about. Before serious investing, I'd want one clear answer. After normal life is paid for, how much money is actually available? The second thing I'd handle is protecting the basic parts of life. Your financial foundation starts with keeping your life functional. That may sound obvious, but people often get this messed up when they get motivated. A plan that makes you feel responsible for one day but broke for the next 13 is a bad plan. The basics matter because they protect your ability to keep going. If your housing is unstable, every money decision seems urgent. If your transportation is at risk, your job may be at risk. Financial stability starts by removing chaos. The third thing I'd handle is a starter emergency fund. This is usually the least exciting part, which is unfortunate because it solves one of the biggest problems that people face. When you have no cash buffer, every unexpected expense needs a funding source. If there's no savings account, that source is usually a credit card, a loan, or money pulled from an account that it really shouldn't have been. A starter emergency fund fixes that. It gives you a small wall before everyday life and financial panic. The first goal doesn't have to be huge. For someone starting from zero, even just $500 can change the way a bad week feels. Then bump it up to $1,000, then a month of expenses. The right number depends on your life, but the purpose is the same. You need enough cash that an everyday inconvenience doesn't become a new debt. This really matters for investing because investments need time. If every emergency causes you to sell, pause, or drain the account, the investment plan never gets a chance to work properly. The fourth thing that I'd handle before investing is high interest debt. If you have credit card debt charging you a brutal interest rate, that debt is working against you every month, and the vast majority of the time, your credit card debt is going to outpace any kind of investment you might make. High interest debt is expensive. This is why paying down high interest debt can be one of the strongest financial moves that you make. You're reducing guaranteed damage and buying back pieces of your paycheck that were previously claimed by old balances. The more monthly payments you owe, the less your money belongs to current you and your future goals. When a high interest balance finally disappears, the monthly payment that was attached to it can move somewhere useful. Now, of course, it's important to note that there can be exceptions. If your employer offers you a strong retirement match, take advantage of it. Seriously, take advantage of it. The main point is to avoid aggressively investing when high interest debt is just eating your progress. The fifth and final thing that I would handle is predictable expenses. When your car registration shows up, it wasn't exactly unexpected. You may have forgotten about it, but it was coming anyway. Things like that surprise people all the time, even though they knew it was coming subconsciously. They may have just forgotten about it. This is where sinking funds help. A sinking fund is money that you set aside for a future expense that you can reasonably expect to happen. If your car insurance is $600 a month every 6 months, turn that into a $100 a month payment. That way, when the bill comes, you're ready. This matters a lot because predictable expenses are often one of the main things that interrupt people's investing. They start investing, feel good for a few months, and then all of a sudden that expected expense comes, but they haven't set any money aside. So the investment contribution stops, the credit card comes out, or your emergency fund gets drained for a non-emergency. At least you didn't have to sell any investments though, because you did make that emergency fund earlier. Now, let's make this practical with an example. Imagine someone takes home $3,000 per month. After rent, food, transportation, insurance, utilities, and minimum debt payments, they have about $500 left. They also have $200 in savings and a $2,800 credit card balance. They want to invest $300 per month because they've heard starting early matters. Here's how I'd look at that. First, I'd make sure the $500 leftover is real, not a fantasy grocery number or ignoring an annual bill that always comes back. Then, I'd protect the basics and keep every minimum payment current. Next, I'd build the starter emergency fund so that one small problem doesn't immediately land on the credit card. After that, I'd focus heavily on the credit card balance because that high interest debt can erase their progress. At the same time, I'd start small sinking funds for the predictable stuff that tends to restart the debt cycle. The exact numbers depend on the situation. The order is the main lesson. Once those 5 pieces are in place, investing becomes much stronger. You know your cash flow, your basic life is protected, you have a starter buffer, high interest debt is being handled, predictable expenses have a plan. At that point, invested money has a much higher chance of staying invested. You can set up automatic contributions. You can focus on broad, diversified investing instead of chasing whatever the internet is excited about this week. But most importantly, you can keep going. The biggest win is creating a life where you can invest every month without stopping. But there's one more trap that I want to call out because it's easy to get stuck in it. Sometimes investing becomes a way to feel productive while avoiding the messier parts of your finances. It feels better to research portfolios than to admit that your car payment is too high. The future is more fun to think about than damage control, but the foundation is where a lot of the real progress happens. When you build up cash flow, pay down expensive debt, and build buffers, your financial life gets quieter and easier. That's the order that I would trust. Use investing to build wealth, but use the foundation to keep that wealth building habit alive.